Hello, all of our DIY remodeler friends out there on the internet. Hey, Jeff here again, and today we're going to help you solve an engineering issue here. So we've just built this nice kitchen cabinet here, and we had it glued to the granite countertop here. And you'll notice that it was all caulked and everything, but apparently there's just still a little bit too much movement in this because it isn't really secure. There was really no way to quite adequately secure it, so the caulking by itself was not enough. Probably what should have been done in here was PL adhesive should have been injected down in there prior to this being pushed up against the granite. So this was done by the granite installers when they came in and they attached it to that. So they apparently didn't put enough of anything down there. What we're going to do today is we're going to show you how to drill a screw hole into granite. It's a very, very difficult task to do, and it takes some very exclusive drill bits to be able to pull this off. And so what we're going to do is we're going to come in from the right hand side over here of this panel. We're going to drill a screw hole deep enough into the granite here to embed a Tapcon, and then that will have it nice and secure. And then once it's secured to the granite, then we can come back and rerun new caulking right around here. It'll be perfect and it will never come apart. So let's get started on that. So you see it says right there, it's made for granite. And so the way these work, these kinds of hole saws that drill into the really tough natural stones, is they're usually diamond coated on the tip there, and you usually have to use water to cool it down, and then you can start drilling. So we're going to try the Bosch first and see if that one works. So here it is. When you flip over the back of the Tapcon screws, they always have a little chart there that tells you, depending on the diameter of the anchor you're using, how much embedment do they want. And of course, this is geared for, this one is really geared for concrete, and they don't give us a table for granite, so we're just going to use the concrete version there. But anyway, it makes sense there. It says on there the anchor embedment should be 1 inch into the material. So that's what we're going to shoot for. And that's typically what I look for. When I'm doing doors, I usually do 1 1/4 inch embedment into the cement. Okay, so you don't just run out and buy any old Tapcon screw. Everything you do has to be sized correctly for your job, okay? So when you look over here, we know we want to have a 1 inch embedment into the granite. And the thickness of our wood panel here for the cabinets is 3/4 of an inch. So therefore, if we can get a fastener that's 1 3/4 inches long, that's what we need. You don't just grab 2 inch or 3 inch or whatever. It doesn't really buy you anything extra. It will still embed and hold. So what we've done here is we actually found a 1 3/4 inch Tapcon. That's what we're going to use. And this is the 1/4 inch by 1 3/4. So, you know, when I'm trying to attach something that might put a lot of force onto the stone or concrete that I'm going to drill into, I tend to go with the 1/4. They're a beefier screw. So these are kind of like see, they're short and wide, and that's kind of what you want here for this case. All right. And then we have 2 potential tools here to make this happen. You can't just use any old drill bit. There's no regular drill bit in the world that will drill through this. Okay, so here's our 3 potential candidates here. So number 1, you know you probably won't be able to use this concrete bit. We've already tried this in the past, and we've already known that concrete bits do not work well on granite. It's the size and the shape, basically, of that head. So that bit's going to be out. So that leaves us with 2 other possible choices here. And we don't know which of these 2 is going to work, or maybe neither of them will work. So we have a Bosch kit here. This one here, it says it's made for tile and stone. And then when you zoom in on it and look, you can see it says, oh, you can use it for granite. And see that little hammer icon? that means they recommend that you use it in hammer mode on a hammer drill. And that's what we have here. We have our hammer drill. See, there's the hammer mode. When you switch it over to hammer mode, what it does is it pounds several hundreds of times a second. It just goes as it drives in while you're trying to drill that hole. And it's super loud. You absolutely have to have ear protection on or you're going to be a world of pain. I usually use the big over-the-ear muffs. So anyway, we'll try hammer mode, we'll try regular mode, see which one works. Sometimes you have to experiment with both modes. So you have this one from Bosch. And by the way, just because this is tile and stone doesn't mean you can use it on everything. It specifically states on the back there that it's not intended for porcelain tile. See right there in the middle of the screen? Bits are designed for natural stone tile and are not intended for porcelain tile. So whenever you have to drill into any kind of glass tile, porcelain tile, ceramic tile, make sure you're buying the right bit that's made for that material, okay? So this one here, let me see if they even allow glass on this one. They do, yeah. So you can tell by the head, when you look at those heads, the heads are pointed like real sharp to a point, and that allows it to start spinning on a glassy surface without it having any problems or slipping or jumping and walking and all that. So here's another one that we have here. This is the Diamond Plus from Milwaukee, and so what this does, this isn't basically like a drill bit. What this is, it's actually a hole saw. So this will cut a 3/16 inch wide hole into the granite, and this one is specifically made for tile and stone. Okay, so we'll see if it works here. It says right there that it's made for granite. Okay, so remember, when you're using these 1/4 inch Tapcons, you're supposed to use a 3/16 inch bit. And so luckily our little set here does indeed come with a 3/16 inch bit. So that's what we're going to use. We have it right here, and this is what our bit looks like. So remember I had mentioned earlier that these generally have a sharp point that allows you to start on a smooth surface without it skipping. So one trick you can do, we're probably not going to have a problem here because we're drilling through this wood first. So this wood will keep the bit stable for us because we're going to be going through 3/4 of an inch of wood from the other side. But a trick you can use, like if you had to drill, like let's say you needed to drill a hole right here, what you could do is get a thick piece of cardboard or even a thick piece of wood that you've already drilled a hole in and tape it down real good and then drill through that hole that you made there. That would keep it stable and from skipping around and all that. So that's just another little trick you can do if you need to. Okay, now before you start, I just wanted to point something out. When you put your drill bit in, make sure it's spinning perfectly straight, that it's not wobbling, right? Make sure your bit does not wobble when it's spinning. And then as you're driving it in, like let's say we're gonna do it right there. As you're going in, make sure that your drill bit is going straight in. You know, once you start it and your hole is started, make sure your hole is straight in, and don't let your drill do this. Don't wobble around. There's a tendency for you to do that because of the hardness of the material, and struggling to try to get that drill bit to make progress and push forward. So just make sure you're pushing in with medium force, that you're pushing in orthogonal 90 degrees straight in. Don't let it wobble, because remember that hole size is going to be critical, because you're talking about a 3/16 inch hole that needs to be drilled for a 1/4 inch screw. And so that hole has to be pretty accurate. If you wobble going like this, going in, you're going to have a wide hole that now this Tapcon screws here will not grip, and you're going to be spinning in place, and now you're going to be in big trouble. So I just wanted to point that out for you to make sure that you're using the proper technique with that when you're trying to get this drilled in. Alright, so we've gotten as far as we can with the Bosch bit, and it took about 5 minutes, but it did penetrate at least to the end there. But see, the problem is that the bit is so short. We ran out of bit, but yet we still need to go a little bit more. See that? So now we're going to employ the Milwaukee. So it's actually a good thing we had both of these here. And then remember too, when you pull these bits out of the wall after drilling in the concrete, don't touch the bit for about a minute afterwards. You'll burn your finger because these things put out huge amounts of heat. You can see that it's already started to discolor the tip of the drill bit there, right? So anyway, I already see the first limitation of these Bosches is that they're just too short. So maybe if we had been called in before this panel was put up and and everything, we could have pre-drilled the hole on the side of it and then drilled through here too with the pilot. But we just don't have the length. So they do sell the Bosch bits at Home Depot there that are more like this length, and that's probably what you might want to look at getting if you're going to go that route. All right, so now we're going to take the Milwaukee hole saw here and put this on the other drill. You could use it on both, doesn't matter, but this is geared really for the impact driver. And keep in mind, using the impact driver won't have the impact of using the hammer drill. And by the way, I did this in 5 minutes without using the hammer drill mode. I wanted to put it through the rigors and see how long it would take without using the hammer drill mode. We tried the other day on here too. If you look at the smaller bit that's on there, the 1/8" bit, it's pretty much destroyed. And we tried it with both hammer drill mode and regular mode, and this bit just couldn't get past 1/4 inch into the granite. So sometimes you might want to maybe start with a small bit and then work your way up to the bigger one too. That might be helpful if you're having trouble getting the bigger one to start biting. But these smaller ones, the problem is that little tiny head they have on there just doesn't have the cutting capability that the bigger heads do. So you can see all sorts of limitations with all of these different drill bits, and you can see why you need very, very specialized drill bits to operate with whatever material you're using. So that's why you always want to check the chart that's on the boxes there. So like, see this one here? It says natural stone, granite, ceramic, and glass. And like I mentioned earlier, it specifically does not say porcelain. Okay? And it doesn't say metal. So those are the things you need to be aware of. Now this Milwaukee here, okay, so here's your hole saw here. So because this is your diamond coated hole saw, this can cut a lot more materials. This can cut porcelain. This can cut ceramic, granite, tile, glass, marble, slate. So pretty much everything. And you can see they want you to use water, and that'll help you extend the life of your hole saw here. Okay, so we now have the Milwaukee hole saw here. Is in the impact driver, so now let's get started with it. See how it does. Now let me just point something out here before we start drilling it. They normally want you to start at like a 40-degree angle like this just to get it started, because you have to sort of carve like a little slot into it. Then once it starts carving in, you tilt it up to 90 like this as it's drilling. All right. Make sure you have water on the surface first before you use this. You can spray it in with a spray bottle if you like. And once it's in, they tell you to wobble, but I'm going to see if I can do it without wobbling. I want to keep a nice, solid 3/16 inch channel there as I'm cutting through there. I don't want to risk this thing getting wider, and then my 1/4 inch Tapcon won't grab. All right, so I sprayed a little water on the end there, and I also sprayed some into the hole. So now our moment of truth is upon us. But before we screw in the Tapcon anchor here, what we're going to do is we're going to take some of this PL adhesive and inject it into here just to help give it some more staying power. draw a nice bead of it down the line there. And it doesn't have to come all the way to the edge of the counter because you don't want it to bleed out the front on you. And that's it, that's all you need right there. I'm just going to force it down into the hole there. Down into that space, right into the gap. And if you need to apply more to keep getting more down in there, you can do that too. The idea is to just force some down in there and let it make contact to both surfaces. Both the wooden kitchen cabinet panel wall there and the side of the granite. Okay, so it looks like the anchor has bitten. It took hold of it. And let's see how we did around here when we come around here. So if I peel off my tape here, and the other piece here, you can see that it did indeed work. See that? So we got it to screw in right here on the side, and it brought this panel all the way up to the granite. And so now all of that PL adhesive that we mashed down in there is going to help glue it. So this will set up overnight and it will be just perfect. Okay, and then we can come back and recalc right along here. Alright, so I've got my biscuit colored Caracolc and I'm just going to run a bead all the way down that little corner there, and I'm going to tool it down. So I'm going to tool it down with this Kramer Fugi profiling kit. Now, this is the best out there. I mean, they sell knockoffs like these at Home Depot, but they're not as good, in my opinion. I've used them before and they're practically useless. There's something about these Fugis that all of the best caulking professionals out there all across the world prefer to use these over everybody else. These are from Germany. And so the way these work is after you caulk, you pick whichever corner size you want and you run it into the corner and hold it against the bottom and the side like that, and you just tool it all the way down. The reason why this is better than your finger, and this is, I mean, there's so much controversy in the industry about this. Like, everybody has their own way of doing it. You have old-timer guys that just say, oh, just take your finger and run it down there, and I've been doing that 40, 50 years, and that's perfect. Some people say, well, you got to spray Windex or some other soap on top afterwards. The reason why you really don't want to use your finger, it's technically incorrect, even though it might come out okay, and there's guys that are talented at doing that. The problem is if I take my finger and I just do it like that, it's going to make it way too concave, and it's going to force it down into the corner just a little bit, but it's going to make it ride up the wall and ride down on the bottom here. And it'll be way too thin, and you won't have enough caulk in covering the corner to make it strong enough. So that's why these guys like Kramer, these are true professional manufacturers that know exactly the way you're supposed to be doing the caulk. Let me set it on number 8 here, and I'll show you, just to give you an example here. When you tool it down there, you see that little, let me see if I can show you here. There's a little space in between there. See in the corner? See how it makes a triangular shape? It starts right where the bottom of the upper tape is and it meets with the lower tape. That's the shape you're looking for. You're not looking for a concave shape. So this gives you the proper shape that you're supposed to have. And you want to determine, well, how big do I want? So I was looking at maybe doing the number 5. I'll try the 5 first and see how that works out. And if that doesn't work, then I'll go a little higher, back up to the number 8 to make it a little bigger. And then other experts will tell you that the way I'm doing it here with the blue tape is sort of incorrect, because when you go to peel up the tape, you could leave a ridge along the edge of the, like a little miniature cliff along the edge of the caulk, which some people say is unsightly. But the thing is, I don't glob it on like these guys that do it with their fingers, and then they've globbed it over the tape, so then now when you peel the tape off, you're peeling it off through that thickness of the extra caulk that you put on there. I do a real thin bead right into the corner there, and then I go ahead and take this and just tool it right down here like that. Okay, so let's try that out. Okay, so I've applied my bead of caulk onto the wall there. So you can see all I did was put just a very small amount on. That's why you don't need that much. So that's, I think, the biggest mistake most people make is they apply way too much caulk. And it just makes a mess, and it's sloppy, and it makes those thick grooves and cliffs on the edge of your caulk line when you peel your tape back out. Alright, so now let's tool it. So I'm going to take the number 5 setting on here. This one here. And we'll start on the corner. And just tool our way down. So now let's take a look at it and see how it looks. So you can see there's not a whole lot of globbed everywhere, see? So now I'm going to do the vertical section. So remember, the more you glob down, the more you're going to try to have to pull up later. And then we can just smooth that down with the finger a little bit. Get that, oh, that was a chunk, that's why. Get that chunk out of there. Okay, so remember to immediately pull the tape up. Don't let the product set. It'll set up within a few minutes. It'll start getting rough on you and rubbery. So you don't want that. You want to get the tape off right away as soon as you tool it down. And there you have it, folks. You have a nice, perfectly tooled down, caulked corner there on your granite. So there you go. You can see how it's on there perfectly. It's at an angle, and so you're filling in with the maximum amount of thickness right into the corner. It's not concaved like it would be if I had used my finger like everybody else does. So this is the correct technique, and look how nice and straight these edges came out too, huh? So which of these two granite drill bits worked better? Well, I think it was a draw between the two. They both did the job. The Bosch here, though, like I said, look at it. It's too short unless you're going to be drilling like right into the granite itself without any obstructions in the way. And the Milwaukee seemed to go through a lot faster. It seemed to eat through the material faster than this. And that's always going to be true, I think, of these hole saws. They're always better than the actual drill bits. They just tend to eat more of the material quicker. The problem with the Milwaukee, though, is when I was done with this hole and I drilled it in perfectly straight, it seemed that the Tapcon was a little bit loose, and the Tapcon didn't really grip until it was near the end. So that shouldn't really be the case. So I think that the Milwaukee might be a teeny bit large for the opening. So maybe you might want to find an 1/8 inch. I don't know if they have a hole saw that's an 1/8 inch or not. But certainly maybe going a little bit smaller than you normally use on a screw for the Tapcon there would benefit you, and then you can always drill the hole a teeny bit bigger if the Tapcon isn't grabbing properly. Okay, so with that, this case is closed. And it looks pretty good here. We got the wall attached with our Tapcon. Here's our Tapcon anchor right there. So it's in there nice and perfect. And it's doing its job. And it's hidden from view because that's where the refrigerator goes, right here. We'll push that back in. Nobody will ever know. And we got it nice recalked. So this is looking really nice now. And if you like this, we appreciate a thumbs up down below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button too, so that you can come back here and binge watch numerous other engineering solutions that we have here for you, where we solve the toughest problems in your remodeling. And when you hit the subscribe button, make sure you hit that little gray icon that's next to it, the bell icon. That will alert you every time we upload a new video. That way you never miss a single video. All right, so that's it for this week. We'll see you on the next one, and you folks have a really great week.